now I'm going to walk you guys through like if I'm going into a brand new market. So I just went into Naples and Cape Coral market. A buddy of mine that was a business partner with me up in Pennsylvania moved down to Florida because, you know, who doesn't want to live in Naples, and was like, what do we do? So I'm literally going to give you guys that exact playbook. So we're going to go in here into PropStream, which like honestly is kind of my preferred data provider. I know there's others, but they're who I use for most stuff. Their interface is just super easy. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to do San Diego because it's where I'm sitting. So we're going to start by figuring out like where it is that you actually want to invest. So you know, throw your own market in there. Property characteristics. So my opinion on PropStream, they have great data on single family, duplexes, triplexes, and quads. I don't trust them on anything bigger than that though. So that's kind of typical properties that I'm looking for. Under equity, I always do a 35 to 100% filter. In my experience, that 35% minimum means they can like just barely afford to sell to me, where I can pay off their mortgage, give them a little bit of spending money. So that's kind of the minimum I do there. I don't really play with this much. Like some people will be like, well, I want a smaller list. I'll go like 50% equity. But I think that's a mistake because in my experience, the people who sell to me can either barely afford to sell to me or they own the place free and clear. So I do 35 to 100% there. Pro tip that I'm going to recommend for you guys, I do recommend using their estimated value range. When I was just starting out in Indianapolis, I mailed a wealthy part of the town and didn't have this on there. So I was getting calls from people that were like, you'll pay cash? Oh yeah, I was listed for like $2.4 million. Well, $2.4 million in the Midwest back in 2016, that is a castle. Like there's nothing back then. My only exit strategy is wholesaling. Like there's no way I'm going to monetize that deal. So, you know, same thing here in San Diego. Like there's properties that are 40, 50 million bucks. So I'm going to say for the sake of this example, I'm looking for stuff kind of at $1.5 million or below. One kind of, you know, you didn't ask, but I'll give it to you guys takeaway. So I've not yet, you know, knock on wood, lost money on a deal due to the market. And the reason I think that is, we saw interest rates were super low and we were like, hey, at some point, like musical chairs, right? Like the music stops. What's going to happen? Rates are going to go back up. So tail end of last year, we started only marketing to properties that were at the median home value or below. So, you know, in like Indianapolis, for instance, I think the average home price is like $250,000. The most expensive deals I'm doing there are like maybe 300. Most of them are below that, right? Thought process being if somebody wants to be a homeowner, they're not going to go live in the 1-1 in the worst part of town that like they got to worry about getting shot. They're going to go to the nicest 3-2 2-car garage that they can afford. And, you know, that's served us really, really well. So that being said, you know, I'm not in super luxury stuff. If you're not in San Diego, $1.5 million is not super luxury stuff, unfortunately. So, you know, I can see on this list right here, there's a crap load of places, 158,659. I'm not doing that big of a direct mail campaign. So what I am doing, this is kind of my base criteria. So I've got 1 through 4 units, 1.5 million or less, 35 to 100% equity. So what I'm going to teach you guys now is what we call like our lazy investor approach. Show of hands, if we're honest, how many of you guys are a bit lazy in the business? Let me quantify that. You cold calling every return to sender? Are you using your list stacking religiously? Are you removing your opt-ins and opt-outs? Probably not, right? There's a lot of this stuff that like we know we should be doing, but we're not. For instance, if Sherrod went and pulled up your tasks right now, do you have any past due? Probably.
Yeah, let's not go there.
You know, if we went and looked at drip sequences, do you have them running? Did you get your 10 DLC set up, or have you just been pretending it's not a problem, right? So that being said, The lazy investor approach is designed to like, you go through what I'm walking you guys through right now once, and then you're kind of good for like 6 to 7 months. You don't really have to do anything else. So there's several lists that we're going to pull. Obviously we're not going to hit, this 158,000 people. We need to cast a smaller net than that. So we're going to do what I call like the easy prop stream niche lists. So first one, and my favorite one, is expired MLS listings. So we're going to go to failed and just click that. We can see there's only 2,700 of them, much better than the 150,000 we started with. Failed MLS listings are one of my absolute favorite lists to hit, because what do people say when we make them an offer? Well, I'll just go list it on the MLS. Like, well, how'd that work for you last time? Right? Like, I know it didn't. So let's have a real conversation here. Like, clearly my number was too low, something like, what's going on, right? So that would be the first list that we would pull. Literally all you would do is check this box, click add to list. I would call this Lazy Investor San Diego and click save. And then when I'm done, I can go export the full list. So that's the first one we'd pull, is expired MLS listings. I'm going to click that out now. I'm going to go back to filter, and next one I'm going to do is bankruptcy. So I'm going to do active or dismissed bankruptcies. And again, we can see on those, like San Diego is a huge county, a couple million people. There's only 1,100 of them. So I would check that box, tick add to list, and add it back to that list. In my experience with bankruptcies, whether they're successful or get dismissed, typically there's a reason that person ended up in bankruptcy. Often those skill sets or habits or whatever don't change. So we have a lot of folks that have a successful or unsuccessful bankruptcy that then end up reaching out to us, and we buy their house a year or two later. So that's the second list that we would pull. I'll clear that out now. Next one I would do is liens. And I do has active lien. And you kind of want to play with this, right? Like in San Diego, on $1.5 million house, a lien for $1,000 probably doesn't matter, but one for 10 grand does. So I tend to go like 1%, 2% of the property value. So in your market, if the average house is $200K, you'd probably do like $2,000. Here in San Diego, I think the average is like 700,000 or 800,000 for a starter home. So if I do has a lien of 8K or more, again, about 1,800 of them. So same thing. I would take that list, snag it, move it over. If you're tracking math wise, we're up to like 5,000 or 6,000 records. Most of you guys aren't in a market this large, right? So if you're in, St. Louis or Indianapolis or something, it's probably going to be a much smaller list than what we're up to already. So I'd come into here, back into filter, and we're going to cut the lien information. And the next one we're going to do under ownership info is interfamily transfer. So indicates something was potentially inherited or like traded hands within the family. Again, like not a huge list, 2,500. So we'd go and add that. So, we're up to, call it 8K roughly in San Diego County. You can go in here and do the like pre-probate. We haven't had much luck with that, so I tend to not recommend that. You could go in and do like pre-foreclosure. I personally don't really love working pre-foreclosure leads, which I know like maybe kind of rare in the real estate space, but in my experience with pre-foreclosures, they tend to bury their head in the sand, pretend it's not going on until it's too late. So I haven't had great luck with those. The next one we're going to do is we're going to go absentee. So owner occupied, no, but we're going to go here into ownership info, owner type, and I'm going to do just individuals and trusts. So no corporations. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cap it at people that only own 3 or fewer properties. Reason being, this is a giant list because San Diego is huge. But reason being that we cap it like that. In my experience, the folks that own like 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, 50 houses, right? They're pretty savvy. If they want to sell their house, they're going to throw it on the MLS. Somebody that only owns 1 or 2 though, We've had very, very good luck with those. So those are kind of the initial lists that we would pull and throw all into one. Let me show you guys this list here in a smaller market. So Pensacola is where I used to live. So Pensacola, Florida, we can see absentee with 3 or less is like only 9K, and that's the entire market, right? If we were to take out that 3 or fewer, probably jump quite a bit. So it jumps to 17,000, so almost 2x. So that's kind of a good way that we just kind of filter down those larger lists. So what we're then doing is taking all of those lists, merging them into one, and we're throwing them on a postcard sequence. So at Ballpoint, we have 2 of these. We have the Americana, which I like better because, well, I came up with them and they're newer. And then we have the comic ones, which we rolled out, 2 or 3 years ago. So here's how these work. You take a list. If you throw them on the sequence, you get 20% off. And every month they get a different postcard. So the thought process with these is they flick through different motivations people might have for wanting to sell. So sell as is without doing any repairs. We're local, get an offer in 24 hours, close fast, pick your closing date. Seniors love this one. That was like a I think a 1950s ad that the like trademark expired on that we snagged. Sell without realtor commissions, relocating, right? So it kind of cycles through different motivations. That's one of them. That's the one we've been using.
And did you say how often? What's the frequency of these?
One a month.
One a month.
Yep.
Nice.
So when I was showing you guys this, that 23K we turned into 198 came off of literally the lists I pulled and throwing them just on the Americana sequence. These are the comic ones. These are a little bit older, but folks still really like these just because it's different than any other mail that's going out. One thing we've seen with these is people tend to call off of the card that responds to them. So all of my hoarder houses call me off this one. They're like, I don't want to clean this up, right? Like, so people will kind of wait for the one that speaks to them and then respond to that one in particular. So that's kind of the mail that we're doing. We're then obviously working all of the leads in REsimpli. Call Porter takes all of the inbound calls. And then the other thing we do that's a little bit different from how most folks do it is we are using a carrot site on every single piece of mail. So in my experience,
you're putting that on the postcard, your website address.
Yep. So it gets on the postcards, we print it under the return mail address. So in our experience with sellers, like they want to know what it's going to be like doing business with you before they call. So we recommend building a local community brand that has, you know, a Facebook page, an Instagram page that you actually update, that has good reviews and all of that. So we push everybody to that. What we see from like a KPI split that's kind of interesting, about half of our deals go to the website and call the website tracking phone number, even though they got a piece of mail. So people are clearly going and looking up that website when they get the piece of mail.